Hello Year 9. This week's lesson is another GCSE taster lesson, and this is one that you're going to work through on your own. So I'm going to give you some guidance on each of the slides and going to recommend that you pause whilst you do some of the activities. There's going to be a short video clip that I want you to watch on the next slide. As you watch it, I want you to answer the two questions that are on the top of the table, and you can use the video to give you the answers for that. And then after you've watched it, before you move on, pause the video and have a go at answering the bottom two questions.
Good morning and welcome to this very special day in the history of South Africa.
27th of April, 1994. It was just so amazing.
The sky was blue. It was a blue that I had never seen before.
I woke up at 5 o'clock, expecting that I will be the first one to be on the queue. But to my surprise, when I get there, the queue was so long.
By 7 o'clock, the queue was just spiraling.
People lined up for hours and hours.
Long lines.
Finally have a chance at democracy.
To drink from this cup of freedom.
We are 2-3 inches taller than we were yesterday.
People ultimately had faith, and the more they lined up, the more they realized this was the rite of passage into democracy.
This morning, I feel I'm just like being born.
19 people were injured, 3 seriously, when a car bomb exploded at Jan Smuts Airport.
It was a tremendously loud bang. There's a lot of damage upstairs.
And I remember thinking to myself, is this the beginning? Is this where it starts?
Yes, there were a couple of bombs, but actually people were so desperate to get through that day that they behaved.
And I think it shows that that resolve was there and it wouldn't be taken off track by any outside influences.
People were standing in line irrespective of race.
Yellow, black, white.
As they began talking to each other, they discovered, hey, this person is human like me.
Just look at this queue, look at the way we are together, you know. There's no distinction of class or race or anything.
Anything can happen to me after this, I don't mind. As long as I've cast my vote.
It was my first election that I voted in. I felt like I was lucky enough in my lifetime to live through history.
Throughout the day, you got overwhelmed by emotions.
The sense that you're standing on the brink of history.
Thinking that nothing could have stopped this election.
People had expected there would be a massive amount of violence.
And perhaps that's another miracle, that there was not one crime reported across the country, so even the criminals went to vote.
For us, it wasn't just a political act. It was a deeply spiritual experience.
You realize the power of what it means to people who have never been allowed to vote in their lives to finally walk up, cast a vote.
This world-class example of what democracy could be.
There was a sort of a harmonious, synchronicitous coming together.
The culmination of grace, all the work and sacrifice and suffering that so many people had done to make that day possible.
It affirmed us, all of us.
Hopefully you have stopped for a while to answer those 4 questions. Keep those 4 answers in mind because you're going to come back to them a little bit later on in the lesson. Today's lesson is an example of an ethics topic. So this comes from the religion and ethics in the modern world topic, and we're going to be looking at equality. So you need to pause the video for a moment while you write this title on your paper or in your exercise books. Why are people treated unfairly? And you'll notice from the outcomes that we're going to be looking at the meanings of the words equality and inequality. We're going to look at historical examples of inequality, and then you're going to be coming up with some ways in which inequality can be addressed and can be changed. On the next slide, there's a series of people's faces, and I want you to see if you can work out what they're famous for. Now, it may be that you recognise some of them and you don't recognise others, but I'd like you to have a guess and see if you can work out what each person is famous for. And just jot it down in your exercise books, or you can just have a think about it if you don't want to write anything down, because you may not know the names of people. What I'd also like you to do for a higher level thinking task is to see if you can work out the link between them all. So they are all linked in one way. See if you can work out what that link is. So you might want to pause this slide for a moment and just have a look at those different faces, those different people. Look for the clues, see if there's anything that might give it away. What are they famous for? And I've got a feeling you'll know at least one of these people. I'll be able to name them, which might give you a clue as to the link between them all. So pause the video for a while and just have a think about who each of these people are and what they're how they're linked. Okay, so we're going to go through the answers and let's see if you got any of these right, or if not, all of them, or even all of them right. This is the one that probably everybody recognises. So this is Barack Obama, and he was the first African American president of the USA. So a real historical moment when he was elected, because there'd never been a black president. Now we're in a position where we have a black female vice president about to take office alongside Joe Biden. You may also recognise this person local to Tuxford, from Lincolnshire, from Grantham. This is Margaret Thatcher, and she was the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. There's a clue in this picture, and you may have worked out the person's what the person's famous for, maybe from the clue in the picture, which is her uniform. This is Sally Ride, and she was the first female astronaut. And again, there's a bit of a clue in the picture here, but which you may or may not have picked up on. These two gentlemen have got flowers, corsages, wedding corsages, and this is Peter McGrath and David Cabreza, who were the first couple. The first couple to have a same-sex marriage in the UK. Again, another clue here, which is the clothing and what this lady's got in her hand. This is Libby Lane. She's the first Church of England female bishop. So not vicar, but the next level up, the first female bishop. Now again, there's a clue in what this gentleman is wearing, but it may not have been quite so obvious. This is James Wharton, and he was one of the first openly gay soldiers in the British Armed Forces, and it was actually illegal to be homosexual in the armed forces for many years. And there's no clues here, apart from maybe the colour of this lady's skin and her race. This is Ruby Bridges, now as an adult, but she was one of the first African American children to attend a white school. And if you've ever heard of something called Little Rock, she was one of those young people that went to a school in Arkansas and had to have police protection to walk in and out of the school. Some very famous imagery came out of her first day of school. So you may or may not have got those right. You may have got some of them right. Well done for giving it a go. So this is the link. They were all the first at something to do with their gender, their race, or their sexuality. So that is what links them. So well done if you came up with that link, that they were the first to do whatever it is they are famous for. What I'd like you to do now, once again, you're going to need to pause the video, and I want you to try to match up those events that have just been explained to you to the year that you think they happened. So these are the years. So just a reminder, we've got the first black president, the first female prime minister, the first female astronaut, the first same-sex marriage, the first black or African American child to attend a white school, and the first female bishop in the Church of England. So pause the video for a few moments, write out the dates, and then write the event that you think happened in that date at the side. I've just noticed a typo, so I do apologise. You might have to guess, okay? Guess should have 2 S's. Sorry about that. Okay, so pause the video now and try to match up the dates. If you're not sure, don't worry, because I'm going to give you the answers on the next slide. Okay, so let's see if you were right. So here we go. The dates aren't in any particular order, but there we go. So I'll not read through them again. You can see for yourself who matches up with who. But I would like you to have a think about these questions and answer them in your exercise book. So you're going to want to pause the video again. Do any surprise you as being either earlier or later than you thought? So you may have looked at that and been surprised to learn that same-sex marriage wasn't actually legal in the UK until 2014. You might have thought it was earlier, or you might have thought it was later. And then why do you think it took so long for these events to happen? So particularly the ones that you've been surprised by, why do you think it took so long? And this is really a bit of a higher order thinking task for you as well, because I'm asking you to use your knowledge and understanding that you've got throughout the years in philosophy and ethics to help you to answer these questions. So once again, pause the video for a few moments while you just answer those 2 questions in your exercise book. So what I want you to consider now is, why are people treated unfairly? So in the starter, after you'd watched the video clip, there were 2 questions that I asked you to consider, which is mainly why are people treated unfairly, and why do people still continue to be treated unfairly? So thinking about your answers to the starter questions, have you changed your mind? If you have changed your mind about what you wrote there, or if you want to develop your answer a little bit more, just develop that in your exercise book. So why do you think people have been or still are treated unfairly? What are the reasons for it? Maybe write the question out in your book and then just jot some bullet pointed answers underneath just to save you a bit of time. So you may want to pause the video again as you do that task. And your next task is, have attitudes changed in recent years? And can you write down any inequalities that still exist? So what do you think has improved in recent years? And I'm talking about very recent years, so in the last maybe 3 or 4, 5 years since you've had an awareness of these issues. Have you seen a change in attitudes? And then can you write down any inequalities, either the ones that we've looked at as part of this lesson or any other inequalities that you might want to mention that you think still exist? So once again, pause the video and just make a note of your answers to those 2 questions. And your final task, which links with the top outcome of the lesson, which is how we can change things, I want you to have a think about any solutions to inequality. What is going to change people's views? So in the assignments section, you will notice there's a Word document for you to download, or simply just to open, which is actually a declaration, a blank declaration of equality. And what I'd like you to do is have a little bit of a think before you start writing on the document or typing on the document. I want you to choose 5 things that you would do to tackle inequality, the inequality that you have noted still happens today. So one example that might help you, and you can use this in your declaration if you want to, is you might choose to use education. You might think it's important to include things such as education about gender equality, education about race equality, learning about the Black Lives Matter movement, things like that. You might choose education as one of the things that you think is going to tackle inequality and change these inequalities within society. So as the task says, choose at least 5 things that you think would tackle inequality, and you are basically creating your own declaration of things that you think people could do, or maybe you yourself could do, to bring about change when it comes to inequality. So the Declaration of Equality looks like this, the Word document looks like this. You can print it off and write on it and stick it in your book. You can just simply write that title and those few words in your book. You can do as many as you want, but I want you to do at least 5. This is a submission task, folks, so you will need to make sure that you either take a photograph of your work in your exercise book, or if you do your work on a piece of paper, on a Word document, you can submit that through the assignment section. Please make sure you submit it through the assignment section so that your teacher knows that you've done it, and also your teacher can return it with some comments for you. Okay, so hopefully that is straightforward and you understand the tasks. If not, you can always email your teacher or message your teacher through the Teams channel to just ask for a little bit of clarification. Okay, make sure you spend a lesson on this, folks. There is no homework from this, so do this for 50 minutes and then submit what you've done. Okay, thanks folks, see ya.